Hello and welcome to WION World is One. I'm Kanishka Sarkar. Well, Venezuela's strongest earthquake in over a century has struck just as the country was beginning to recover from years of economic crisis. But beyond the human tragedy, what does this disaster mean for Venezuela's economy, oil sector, and recovery prospects? Let's break that down with Dr. Suyash Bhatt, Director at Academy for Finance Technology and Innovation. Dr. Bhatt, thank you so much for joining me on WION today. Let's talk about the economy first. Venezuela was only beginning to stabilize after just years of crisis. Can an earthquake like this, of this scale, push the economy back into recession?
Good afternoon. Yes, I think this is something very tragic. In 125 years, this is the biggest earthquake that has hit Venezuela, and its economy to a great extent relies on oil export. And the kind of damage that this earthquake has caused is massive, and not only in terms of infrastructure loss, but also human lives. So it will take a while for them to get back to normal. And though the report also says that the oil infrastructure is still intact, but you should bear in mind that for last 2.5 decades, there's nothing been done to improve their infrastructure. So for them to increase production or probably earn more money by selling oil and probably trying to recover, that's not possible immediately. And also knowing the current tragic event, I believe all the resources would be directed towards recovering from this massive loss that they have incurred. So it is a very big damage to them, and it will have a deep impact on their economy.
Right. And Dr. Bhatt, power outages, they have disrupted refinery operations. Like you said, the infrastructure may be impacted, but of course, it's more than 2.5 decades old. Operations are halted. Now, could this affect Venezuela's oil exports and global energy markets?
Yes. So, for this, I think we need to understand the context for Venezuela. From the reserves perspective, they are one of the largest in terms of 303 billion barrels of oil that they have. But this oil is not the normal oil that the Brent crude or the sweet crude that we talk about, which is easy to refine. This is hard crude which is being sold, and it also trades at a discount. So for them, you can recover from this, but in terms of immediate impact, I believe. As I said, all the resources would be directed towards the humanitarian crisis. So they, to some extent, you may find some kind of a cut in production, but that would be detrimental for them. So I'm sure they would make sure that the power or the energy production remains the same so that they can earn this crucial dollar to recover from the crisis. But I'm sure there are countries who would come to help. I believe India has also sent help to recover from this crisis. From an energy market perspective, 1% of the global oil that hits the market comes from Venezuela. So I'm not too sure whether this would really have a massive impact on the global oil prices. But yes, from a domestic Venezuela perspective, this is a massive blow. And I can easily say they have gone back 5-10 years back in terms of the growth that they were supposed to have from the new change that happened in the regime.
Got it. And Dr. Bhatt, hospitals, power grids, water systems, they were already struggling. How much harder does it take now to rebuild when the infrastructure was weak to begin with?
Yeah. So I believe the impact is such that the loss of infrastructure is massive. So from a permanent structure perspective, it will take a time for them to rebuild these hospitals, schools, and the public infrastructure damage that has happened. For now, to begin with, they would have to come up with temporary structures. That's what I believe most of the aid or the UN aid is directed towards. But again, you need to understand this part of the season or this part of the weather is typically the hurricane time. And this is probably one natural disaster which has happened. But during this season, a lot of other things also happen. So it may be tough time from a humanitarian perspective as well as from an economic perspective for them to rebuild so easily, because the weather is not on their side, at least. And the timing is also probably not so good. So recovery would be painful and slow to come out of this entire crisis.
Right. Dr. Bhatt, as you were mentioning earlier, a lot of aid might just go towards the humanitarian crisis, and economic rebuilding will still take some time. So just want to touch upon insurance coverage as well, which is very low in Venezuela. Where will the billions needed for rebuilding come from?
Yes, so I believe currently the only one who could help in this entire crisis is US, and the US is the one which would have to step in and probably roll out the aid that is needed, both from a humanitarian perspective, but also from a rebuilding perspective. And no matter what kind of political differences or the events that have happened, but I believe in these matter, if US stated policy is that they want to maintain their dominance in the American continent, so they would be the first one to actually come and help and rescue, and not only rescue but also rebuild this. And the lower insurance rate is not only a problem with Venezuela, but the entire Latin America. And for them they also don't have that kind of public infrastructure which probably developed economies have. So it's almost similar to a developing economy, and this will have an impact on individuals to a great extent. But to my understanding, US would play a bigger role. Because they have, to some extent, also taken charge of the resources of the country. So if they were to divert the funds or resources back to the country, they would be the first one to probably also put in their own share to rebuild the country and bring it back to normal state, because it is in both a stable Venezuela is in interest of both US as well as Latin America.
Right. Like you said, if it chooses to, US could play a big role over here. But speaking from a larger perspective, could this disaster lead to greater international cooperation and sanctions relief? Or do you think will politics continue to slow recovery efforts?
No, I think sanctions relief is something which already has unwounded, I would say, because if you see the last visit that the Venezuelan, you could say temporary prime minister who's in charge of the country had visited India, and the treaties that we have signed, we were not able to buy crude oil from Venezuela. So it was close to 64,000 metric ton of oil that we used to buy from them, and that itself has gone up by 16-fold in last 60 days. So definitely sanctions relief is something which is already under play. And they have already started working on it, not now, but maybe when the regime change happened, at that time itself, this change was made. Also, this will help them not only sell natural resource like oil, but also probably attract capital, which could be needed for building the nation again. So you have public-private partnership in building bridges, roads, infrastructure. So, right now is a time when they need this crucial capital. So you would definitely see a huge inflow of capital as well from not only US, but also maybe from European countries, but more from US, because it is in their interest to bring everything back to normal so that the economic engine can be fired up again. Because, again, as I said, they hold one of the largest reserves of crude oil. So if that can be tapped, I think that would be really something which could help them come out of this crisis much faster.
Right. Dr. Bhatt, thank you so much for joining me here. And big takeaways from this conversation. First of all, this entire disaster may not have a big impact on the global energy market, but it may be detrimental for the domestic market if at all production cuts are implemented, and also how US could come out as a big help if it plans to aid the economic engine of Venezuela. Those are the key takeaways coming in. Thank you so much, Dr. Bhatt, for joining me. On that note, I'll let you go.
Thank you.
Right. Well, the humanitarian response is now the immediate priority. The bigger question is whether Venezuela can rebuild without derailing its fragile economic recovery. That's the story we'll continue to track closely and bring you more updates. Thank you for joining.